Well, peace be with you.
And also with you.
It's so good to have you here and also here online. Question today, has anyone traveled to the Badlands? 2 or 3 of us have. Do you recognize it from the photo on the front? Does it look like that? Those are the hills of the Badlands of North Dakota that I once went on a family trip. Took my family out there, and in the month of July, my dad spent his high school years in North Dakota, and this is how he always described July and August in North Dakota: bad ice skating months. But as you can see from the photo here, a lot of the ice had melted by this July. So it was. So we were on an epic family camping trip in North Dakota. We went out to, I don't know if you've been to the western part of the state, right up against Montana, Medora, Teddy Roosevelt National Park, wild herds of horses and other animals out there, and vast and arid land. No stores, no hospitals, very few people, and just the Badlands, stretching. We set up our tent in Cottonwood Campground, right by the Cottonwood River that had dried just to a trickle, just a few tents there, no one else there. We decided, what do you do in the Badlands? We asked a park ranger that said, you should take a horse ride, a trail ride on a horse. And so we went over, and we're not very good at horses. My daughters are very tiny on top of these large horses, but we were assured that the horses were on autopilot, and we just follow the horse in front of them, no matter what. And so we set off, and before we got going, the park ranger ahead at the very start said, if we happen to go through a herd of wild buffalo, be sure not to get between the mother and her calves. And I said, how could I even turn the horse? And what about my daughters? And it was too late, and we were heading off. And it was like, I was praying we didn't see a buffalo, but up and down these very steep ravines back and forth, and spread in front of us hundreds and hundreds of wild buffalo, with the ranger way in front, slowly ambling right in the middle of this herd of wild buffaloes. And I'd never thought about this before, but do you know that buffalo comes in all kinds of shapes and sizes? You have the little buffalo, the calved buffalo, you have the mommy and daddy buffalo, and then you have, which are bigger than your horse and bigger than you, and then you have the grandpa buffalo that they lower their head to look you in the eye while you're on horseback. Large beasts as we slowly are going through this land in the Badlands with buffalo. And I had all these thoughts, and we heard this braying noise suddenly at the edge of the herd, and this like stampede, like the ground shaking, because there's a size of Volkswagens that are moving. And we looked around, and my daughters are in front, they're holding on to the pommel of the horse, and somehow we're there in the Badlands going through with the buffalo doing something there in the middle of a wild buffalo herd. Has anyone here ever traveled to the Badlands? Ezekiel, read for us today by Melissa, he has traveled to the Badlands in this vision that God gave him of a valley filled with dry bones, no life, no hope, very dead. The Badlands. Ezekiel began prophesying in the year 593 BC, just 4 years before that. He was part of a crowd of refugees and families that were being deported in another Mideast war, another superpower war over there. This time Jerusalem lost, Babylon conquered, and people were led away, deported in chains to become servants and slaves. And in just a few more years, they would lose even more hope because the line of the kingdom would be cut forever. King Zedekiah, of the descendant of David. They thought the kingdom of Israel would last forever. Killed. All of his descendants killed. Hope killed. The very temple of God to last forever, destroyed down to the foundations. A crushing defeat. Who are we now? This is Ezekiel's valley of dry bones. The bones are the house of Israel. They say our bones are dried up, our hope is dried up or lost. We are cut off completely. And that's exactly the moment that God says, you, prophesy. These bones are going to live. They're going to live. And first he prophesies, and as we heard from the reading, the bones start coming back together, and sinews must have been an amazing sight. And then suddenly this whole host of people standing on their feet, and God said, breathe life into them, and he did, and they came to life, but it wasn't enough. They were just alive. They were still a people without any hope. And that's why God asked Ezekiel to breathe a second time. God said, speak my message of hope. Give them hope in the Badlands. Give them hope. Because my message is not just for people connected by bones here, not just people of kin, it was wider than nationalism. My spirit encompasses all people. Give them hope now. Give them hope. A lot of the previous chapters in Ezekiel talk about how Israel's wandered from God, and that's why they're cut off without hope at this point. They've forgotten God's ways, how the kingdom of God is near, how we are to love our neighbor and practice kindness, and now their hope is cut off, and they're in the Badlands wandering. They've forgotten God's ways. Today, in March 22nd, 2026, in many ways, I feel we have journeyed into the Badlands again. Superpowers again are fighting nations in the Middle East. The U.S.-Israeli attack in Iran has now spread to over 20 nations in our world. The relentless beat of the Epstein files have yet to hold any powerful men accountable. The poor in the United States scramble for health care, and in some cases for heat. We're so fortunate here, scramble for heat. Meanwhile, the oil companies are reaping massive windfall profits in excess of $60 billion just on this war alone. They're making a lot of money on the war. Yet in the middle of these Badlands, I experience hope. And I see hope in the way that we can walk with others in their Badlands to remember God's call, that breath of life. Just last month, Maria came back to us to say, thank you. She's the one running in the Boston Marathon. This would be the first time, the last time she tried to run, it was the bombing. She was traumatized by that, and now she's traumatized by the war in Ukraine, wants to bring hospital equipment to people who have lost their limbs, children and adults. And she said, only 3% of people and organizations have responded. Payson Park Church is one of the 3%, and you are so generous. And so I see hope in the way that we walk with others in their Badlands. And just last Sunday, some of us, such as Jenny and Kamiko, were literally walking in the Dragon Dance, part of the Lunar New Year, lots of fun with Korean fan dance and Japanese drums, and My favorite, the lion cabbage dance, where the lions actually eat the cabbages right in front of you and then spit them out on the little kids that are scattered around there. And why was this happening for the Lunar New Year? A lot goes to Julie Wu, who's organizing this through the Belmont Pan-Asian Coalition. And all this is coming together in this wonderful community because in response to a lot of incidences of hate against people who are Asian, who look Asian, forgetting our kinship with all peoples. And speaker after speaker at this event last Sunday spoke to the hope that events like this give them with all the Badlands that are happening. It was an event of hope. I see hope in the way that we are walking in those Badlands. And today after worship, you'll be invited to join with Emily and Lise, and hopefully you still are on deck for postcarding. Yes, they're nodding their heads. Postcarding is a way to practice hope in these times. It's a way to post cards to people who have not voted before and said, let's vote your values. Do you value health care? Do you value women's health? Do you value the environment? Do you want to protect children and advocate for the poor? And this is a way you can do that. So again, I see hope in the ways that we walk in these Badlands today. And just look at what our light seekers are doing. I'm hearing lots of noises upstairs from previous weeks. And one thing that our deacons have asked the light seekers to do is to remember those in our community who maybe are hospitalized or homebound or cut off or going through an illness. And let's have our children practice. We want to teach them, how do you remember those going through tough times? How do we model that? Yeah, sure, we can have Linda just dash off some bunch of cards in the office, but how do we model that? How do we do that? And so the kids have been writing cards, and the response coming back is it just touches your heart. When people call back, I got a card from Light Seekers. It's amazing. And one person made it to church and wanted to go up and just thank the Light Seekers Sunday school and met the person who wrote the card. It was just an incredible connection happening there. Her heart was so touched. I just see hope, the way that we are walking, the way we are modeling how we walk with those in the Badlands. So I can't leave you hanging. Yes, my family made it through that ride with the buffaloes, the wild buffalo herd in North Dakota. You can ask my daughter Becca about it at the next First Friday. They've been attending First Friday worship services here. My daughters have also traveled through other Badlands in their lives. For example, just one, navigating the pain and brokenness of their parents' divorce. And as you know, there are other Badlands too. My daughter has recently asked me to join her at the ER as she goes through some difficult times. She's allowing me to walk with her in her Badlands. And I hear sweet, sweet music when I do that. Her sound there as we recall the Buffalo ride or whatever we're talking about in the ER to fill up all those hours of waiting and tests. Or the sound of Quinn, her daughter, singing just pierces my heart. You know what that means, to have your daughters go through such difficult times and now to have someone bouncing with energy, singing in my church. How that gives me hope. So I see hope in the ways that we walk with others in the Badlands, because we all have hope with the way that God chooses to walk with us in the Badlands, especially through Jesus, who shows us the heart and will of God. We know what it is. We review it. In Sunday school, we model it, we practice it, giving food to the hungry, drink to the thirsty, welcoming the stranger, clothing to those who need it, to visit the lonely and those in prison, to stand with the weak and the vulnerable. God says to Ezekiel, God says to us today, where you humans have failed, I will bring victory. Where you have stumbled, I will bring rescue. Where you have wandered into the Badlands, I bring you hope, because I am there with you. Thanks be